In the fourth episode of the Build Insite podcast, we sit down with Aaron Coach Apples Applefield, a figure of resilience, dedication, and leadership both on and off the baseball diamond. From the disciplined halls of a household led by a Top Gun graduate to the bustling fields of Australian baseball, Aaron shares a story that transcends the realms of sports, infusing his rich experiences into the heart of business and personal development. Now turning his formidable talents to the building industry and a people and culture leadership role, Coach Apples blends the timeless wisdom of stoic principles and modern mindset coaching, navigating the hectic pace of professional life with grace and efficiency. Dive in as Aaron opens up about fostering team spirit, achieving well-being, and pushing the limits of productivity in today's fast-paced world. Whether you're a sports enthusiast, a business leader, or anyone in between, this conversation promises insights that will help inspire you to rethink balance, discipline, and success.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Build Insight podcast. This is episode 4. I'm joined with my co-host, Luke, today. And we've got a good mate of ours on who's been a part of both of our journeys over the last couple of years. We're going to refer to him by his nickname, but it's Aaron Applefield. And he is originally from California in America. He now resides in Queensland. Apples, can you have a quick chat, mate? Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. And we'll get stuck into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was very blessed and lucky enough to come to this great country in 1998 after graduating from university in California. I wasn't ready to wear a suit and tie and go work for dad or get a corporate job. And I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to be doing just yet, but I knew I wasn't done playing ball. And had a college scholarship. And when I graduated, I got an opportunity to come out and play baseball in Australia, an opportunity to come out and have a run with the Brisbane Bandits. For terms outside of my control, unfortunately, that team became unfinancial the year I was meant to come out, but a local club, offered me the same contract, which was to cover my flights, give me a job, put me up, and give me an opportunity to play, and hopes that the professional league and that team would come back. From that, I went back and forth to Europe for 3 years, chasing summers, just traveling around with a baseball bag and a duffel bag. And that was an amazing experience. And I learned more out of that time than I did in my time in university. And then decided to settle in Brisbane, Australia. I married my travel agent, a couple of kids, started a business. That business, unfortunately, again, due to things that weren't in my control, and this is going to be a theme, because you can only control and manage what you can manage. It's a lot of my stoic principles that I coach in. Because of a car accident, I had to wind my business up. I was $700 from being bankrupt. My dad came out for a visit to try and woo me and convince me to come home and run the family business. And I had a mate reach out to me the very day that I was meant to be going out and playing golf with my dad and having a conversation about how that was going to look, about me coming home. And I got offered a job on the way, basically, to go play golf. Had an interview with the gentleman on the way to the golf course, and he offered me the job on the spot. And I basically said to my dad, look, I know this is kind of a crappy thing to say, but I know this offer will be on the table in 12 months' time. I don't want to go home because of something that someone else did to me, like a car accident. That was pretty serious. I'd rather go back on my own terms. And sure enough, that was a contract with my current employer, Brett. So it was meant to be 12 months. And it's now 16 plus years later, after a multitude of different jobs. Through that period of time, I stayed engaged in baseball, sometimes pulled back a little bit, lost the love of coaching and the love for the game because of some things that happened coaching at a higher level. And then got the B back when my son decided he wanted to start playing again. And then that led me into a club coaching role at the local club that I was at, because I could see that there was just things different from when I came out. And it wasn't the same as whenever I had come to Australia in 1998. So I wanted to give my son and those players the best experience possible. I could either do it from the outskirts, or I could get stuck in and get involved. So they offered me the club coaching job. I did that for 3 years. During that time and previous to that time, I was engaged by the Brisbane Bandits because the professional league came back and was asked to be a coach. And quite a funny story, 12 years after not being able to play as a player because the league was unfinancial, I got asked to come back as a coach. So I never got to wear the jersey as a player, but I got to wear the jersey as a coach and got to be part of a four-peat series where we run 4 championships in a row. And that was just amazing, and got to work with some amazing coaches and some amazing athletes and learn along the way. And then a year ago, Dwayne and Amelia approached me about being involved in Live Life Build. And so I thought, geez, I better start a proper coaching business, since I've been doing coaching both personally and professionally for people for some time, but never charging for it. And I thought, what am I doing? So when the opportunity came up to actually brand myself and create a name and a business, I started Stoic Coaching. And funnily enough, I've been so flat out being engaged in the process of coaching people and coaching teams that I haven't even gotten around to having a website or even a logo. So that's on the cards for 2024, is to get that branded up a little bit better. I know that was a little longer than the summer you wanted, but being a typical Yank, you give me a soapbox and I'm going to stand on it.
It's man on a mission.
It's going to be the conversations that keep flowing, mate, and that's what we're all about. So, we're definitely going to get to what you're doing at the moment, and no doubt we're going to talk about some goals and goal setting, mate. But let's track back a little bit. So your dad was a Top Gun pilot back when you were growing up as a kid. So what is the structures and discipline you grew up with? Can we go into what that's kind of done for you in your sporting endeavours as you've grown, and now that you've got your own son following in your footsteps with the baseball bat, mate? And we might tell that story of you recently up at the Gold Coast that has something to do with a baseball bat and an elevator with your American accent, but we'll get to that.
That was quite funny. Well, so when I was born, my dad had just left the military and he had started an insurance brokerage firm. But the way that he ran his business, the way he ran our household, the way he coached, because he was a coach that I looked up to a lot and was heavily involved in our sporting as kids. I have 2 brothers, so I'm the middle child, and definitely discipline and structure was the main thing. So being a Top Gun instructor and a Top Gun pilot who flew 2 tours in Vietnam, it's discipline, it's structure, it's consistency that helps to keep you alive. And it's also what helps you to stay focused and on mission, whether your mission is flying off an aircraft carrier, your mission is to go to work and provide for your team or your family. I think I told this story at the live event. I distinctly remember my father saying to me like a mantra over and over and over again. He said, son, you can make up for lack of intelligence and lack of talent with hard work and consistency. And I used to think that he was motivating me to be a consistent, hardworking human being, but I think he was telling me I was a dumb shit with minimal talent. But at the end of the day, I couldn't be more grateful to both my father and my mother for instilling that sort of level of discipline. My mom was an ER nurse, so you can imagine the upbringing that we had as a family of boys, being raised by an ER nurse and an ex-fighter pilot. I used to get the white glove test in the bedroom. You'd run the finger over the top of the door sill and, do it again. Not good enough. So, yeah.
Can I ask, Apples, that how have you now structured the discipline in, I guess, what you grew up with and your experience in competitive sports? How have you now adapted that into your leadership role in the building industry?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I noticed was that people talk a lot about motivation. And yes, motivation is important in life, but motivation comes and goes. And I think that's where discipline and structure and having systems in place and routines really comes into play. So interestingly enough, what you're talking about, I've had to take a real good hard look, and I've shared this on the platform of Live Life Build before whenever I've been doing coaching, is that I myself went through a period of adjustment and change where, as an account manager on the road, I very much knew my day in and out, exactly how it was to operate. I had set aside time for being proactive. I'd set aside time for being reactive. And now in a role which I've now moved into in a people and culture human resource space, meetings go a lot longer than I'm used to them going. I mean, some of these can go for 2 and 3 hours long when you're talking about, the importance of your staff and structuring training programs. And so for me to find a new structure and a new balance and a new consistent approach to my daily routine took a little bit of time. And what I had to come to terms with was that I actually had to live and breathe it for a period of time before I could start making those adjustments. Because if I just started tweaking things and started setting routines without knowing what my days and weeks ahead were going to be looking like being in a new role, I think the biggest thing I learned was to sometimes step back and observe and be in it for a period of time before you can then remove yourself and step back to then reassess and set up some systems and some timing and some clear boundaries to make sure that you can be productive. I hope that answered your
Yeah,
question.
very well said. Thank you.
100%.
Definitely, mate. Now, you've been around various, Brett's in working with a professional and alongside professional builders. And, we might keep coming back to the baseball here, but can we talk? I'd love your take on more high performing people, whether it's playing sport, running a business, building, and managing the well being along with that too, mate. It's maybe some things that you do and that you do in your coaching that really guides people in the right direction.
Wow. Okay. The biggest change for me, and having gone through this myself in the last 2 years with a massive lifestyle change and heading back into playing again, not too many guys at 48 years old decide that they're going to go back and play top level club A grade, B grade baseball, especially as a catcher and the wear and tear that puts on your body. I set myself some really high goals. But funnily enough, and one of them was to come back and play. Funnily enough, what ended up happening was I fell in love with the process of it. And I think the biggest thing that I'm learning is that as I get older, we live in such a microwave society and we want our fix to be done quickly. We want to take a pill. We want it done right away. We don't want to put in the hard yards. And I think a lot of the old adages of, you get out of things what you put in, and anything worth doing, it takes time and it takes dedication and commitment. And one of the things I'm focusing on a lot more now with both my young athletes as well as my mature athletes, as well as people that I coach in business or personally, is that goal setting is absolutely a must. But I think that the important thing is to set goals that are measurable, which everyone talks about. But even more to the point, it's about having the ability to take joy in the process and the little wins along the way. And what ends up happening is that sometimes you surpass the goal without even realizing it, or the goalposts shift and all of a sudden what you thought was your goal, it becomes something different and it might be better than what you anticipated. And really process driven goals is where I'm at now, is really talking to people about celebrating the process driven goals that will then help you to get to your ultimate vision, I think is where it's at.
We talk about that a bit, don't we? Like it comes up, some things to do with being patient and enjoying the journey. And I mean, when you kind of go through a year or a season, in the case of playing sport, um, you know, enjoying that journey rather than the end goal, because you might not get there either. You might set out to hit a certain target or, win a championship or something, and you might not get there that year. So what are you in it for? Um, Being patient along the way to actually get better every day. And that's some things we've spoken about personally as well with yourself. Each day, just to sort of keep your focus on the things you can control. And that's one thing that I suppose we lose sight of in business and building, especially if we talk about that. We might have certain contractors and so forth that let us down as builders, and we can pretty easily lose focus on that and worry about what we can't control rather than the little things in our daily routines.
Your sphere of influence. And funny, when you talk about goals, and I'll share a little bit of a personal goal, but having played the last 2 seasons, I've realized that my hamstrings and quads are doing most of the work when I'm crouching and catching as a ball player. And I realized when I was looking in the mirror, yes, I've gotten a lot more fit, but I've got a saggy, flat old man's ass now. And so the goal for this off season is to get in the gym and grow a peach. And funnily enough, I had my first leg day in probably ages and doing squats and Bulgarian squats, and walked out of there so sore.
I'm going to call you out a little bit here, mate. Do you remember back to Drive 23? So those that are listening that don't know, a part of Live Life Build, we did a road trip in, I think it was October last year. We all jumped on a bus in Melbourne and did a little bit of traveling around to different factories and all sorts. And mate, we had a pretty personal conversation there about what you wanted to achieve personally in 3 months for your physical physique. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know that I ever received that photo. How did you go?
Ooh, Yeah, I put that weight back on. When we were on that trip, it was directly after going overseas, and I got down to like 72 kilos. To put that in perspective for everyone, I started out about 108. My goal was to be at 80. And then once I got to 80, I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was sick. I had people come to me going, mate, are you okay? And I looked gaunt and lost. And even on that trip, people were like, mate, are you eating? And like, yeah, look at me. I'm eating and I'm drinking. And I don't normally eat breakfast. I'm eating breakfast. And I don't drink alcohol normally. And I'm smashing the vinos. And I just can't put the weight on. But sure enough, when I came back up after that trip, I realized that what was going on was that I was burning a little bit too much fuel, and I wasn't replacing it enough. So I just changed a couple of supplements I was taking, and that allowed me to put on some weight. Which, thank you for checking in. Yeah, I didn't send you that
Very
photo,
welcome.
but I can.
So to take out of that last couple of minutes, we're going to check back in with Apples in a few months and make sure his glutes are a bit bigger. All right, let's get this conversation back on track, Luke. I think, I really want to touch on too, mate. You're a proud father as well. And I know you've got a daughter, 16, and your young fella's about the age of 14.
Just turned 14.
So he's the apple of your eye, so to speak. He's really getting you out now to turn the attention while he's following down your baseball routes. But yeah, what's some things, parenting with leadership as well? Like obviously it's one thing to sit around with some builders like ourselves, but how do you find from being in a professional mindset and the growth aspect from day to day in your routine, talking with other professionals in the building industry as you do with guys like ourselves, but then all of a sudden to get home and then be parenting a 13 turned 14-year-old son, having these same conversations?
Yeah, that's a really big one. I get it from my kids a lot, which is, stop coaching me right now. I don't want to be coached right now. As I said before, I grew up in a family of boys in a very structured military family. You didn't cry much. You get smacked on the ass and get back out there if you're not bleeding. And I remember one specific time whenever my daughter was sharing something with me very personal, and I went straight into fix it mode, like straight into coaching. And I realized, she literally, she's very smart. She said to me, "I don't need that, Dad. I just need you to listen and hold me and hug me." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So that was a big learning curve. And with my son, I think that especially on the baseball side, he's really blessed that he will never follow directly in the same lines that I did. Was a catcher, still am a catcher. And left-handers, they don't catch. It's just one of those things in baseball. It's an awkward movement for left-handers. There's certain positions you do not play as a lefty. So God blessed him as being a left-hander, which means he can have his own baseball journey without being ever compared to me. So he's never going to catch. But he has some distinct advantages over me as well. He was born with what you call low muscle tone, but very quickly identified that he's ambidextrous. So I got him involved in some sports early on in things that would challenge him with his core and work on that low muscle tone and that crossover, because he was unable to cross over his body very well. Everything was rigid up and down. So I did things like went out and bought him a drum kit and put labels on the drum kit, and everyone thought I was insane. That got him to work across his body. And the first bike I got him, I took the seat off, and he had to learn to pedal standing up. So he had to learn to use his core. And he got involved in BMX, and then he got involved in Muay Thai. And he was right-footed but left-handed. So then the day that he said that I want to play baseball, Dad, I was so excited. But I put a bat in his hand on both sides of the plate and kind of encouraged him, if not subtly forced him, to be a switch hitter. So he has skills that I didn't. He bats from both sides of the plate. He's a lefty. He pitches. He plays first. He's got great baseball IQ. My thing is that with my kids and with anybody that I'm coaching or working with, is really highlighting where their strengths are at and encouraging them to really double down on their strengths while they work on those things that they want to get better at. Human nature is that we all are kind of forced into in today's world of trying to get better at the things that we're not good at. And that's okay. That's actually really good. We all want to improve in certain areas. But one thing that was shared with me early on when it came to coaching, and this was from my dad, he said, if you're a circle, be the best damn circle on the planet. Don't try and be a square, a rectangle, or a triangle. but surround yourself by people who have other skill sets as you, but with a common goal. We can't all be front rowers. We can't all be hookers. We can't all be all rounders, and we can't all be bowlers, to use different terminology in Australia rather than baseball terminology. It takes all different skill sets and all different teammates, to put together a solid team and get an end result. And with my kids, I have to constantly remind myself that my job is to be their parent and to support them on the journey that they choose to go on. And then whenever the time comes for me to coach them in certain aspects, is to wear that hat. And, so it's, so to speak, you put on your coaching hat, I'm in my coaching mode, and you take the coaching hat off. And a very quick story about changing mindset is quite often, okay, well, when you walk into the house, you see the stairs and you see an entryway, and there is constantly shoes and handbags and backpacks, every time I would walk in the door. And it took me a while to understand why I'd get frustrated when I'd come in after a long day and see that everywhere. So I tried to bribe them. I said, look, I'll give you $2 every time I walk in the door and your bags are picked up. That didn't work because everyone's motivation is different, and they've already got everything they want. So they didn't care about the money. So I realized that I was going to have to be the one to make that change, that I couldn't coach them through that. I had to let them find that themselves. So I went on my 40th birthday, and I happened to be grabbing a coffee somewhere, and there was this artistic photo of someone else's entryway. So I bought it, and I put it in my entryway. And when I open the door, the first thing I look at is I turn my head to the right, and I look at someone else's house, and I take a deep breath. And then I put my keys where they belong, and I put my shoes where they belong, and then I move all their bags and everything, and it doesn't bother me nearly as much. So quite often, it's yourself that you need to coach through a system. It's not the other people.
Yeah, I think it's so true with kids myself. My oldest is she's nearly 11, and I think as well each kid, and if you translate that onto place of work, each person is going to react to things differently. It's interesting. He say before, the square definition, and each person that you might have in your team might react differently to learning in different ways. So I know it's something we practice with backman builders, is to actually encourage guys to vocally say if there's something they would like to work on in particular, that we can sort of arrange, whether it's a certain stage of a house being constructed that they haven't had as much practice doing. So I mean, yeah, no different to being a professional sportsman, being a tradesperson. You're always looking to improve and grow your knowledge and refine your skills. So I think that's where sport and construction really can align. It's a test on your body, on your mind, and if you're playing a sport, you still need to use your mind. It's not just all your the cogs and chains of your body working. So yeah, that's fantastic, mate. I think something I'd love to chat a bit more about is some of the strategies in the team building you might see with peak performance, and tying that in with the people and the culture that you've had the experience with.
I think that from watching some of the best, David Nielsen, I've been very privileged to work with David Nielsen. He is Mr. Baseball in Australia, played for the Milwaukee Brewers, all-star. He's the current Australian coach. He was the Brisbane Bandits coach. Watching the way that he works with his team, and I'm talking about his other coaches like myself as well as the players, the way that he goes about that, I think, is all about awareness and having your finger on the pulse. If you're present and if you know how to engage with people and you're running a team, not everyone, as we said, is motivated the same. And I think that whenever you give clear boundaries with people and they have a clear description as to what their role is, and they're empowered to do that job, and they feel like they have the luxury of making mistakes so that they can learn without being drug over the coals, that you can still hold someone accountable. We talk about accountability a lot, and accountability is really important. But if you have a team in place where they feel encouraged and empowered, they're going to feel comfortable making those mistakes. And then the accountability that comes in doesn't feel as intense for them and they don't get defensive, they're open to that line of communication and they want to get better for the sake of the team. So I think it all comes down from the leadership. I think it all comes down, I'll give you an example. I had a coach once, and one of the things that irked me about him was that there is an air about him that he portrayed that he could do everything better than anyone else. And there's a stoic principle that I love, which is everyone is my master of something. And that basically means that you can learn something from everyone. There's someone on the planet who does something better than you. And as soon as you start switching off and thinking you know everything, well, you do. You know everything you're ever going to know because you've already switched off. So I think it's about a true leader, from my experience, leads through servanthood and through being available. In fact, funnily enough, and I'm going to do something a little rude, I'm going to grab my phone, but I had the luxury of hanging out with David Nielsen because his son was on my kids' team this weekend. So we spent a lot of time watching the game, and being baseball true guys, we tend to remove ourselves from the rest of the fans and go sit in the outfield away from the people who don't truly understand the game. Not a put down, because it's really important that parents are parents, but sometimes you just have to be a little bit distanced from that. But Dave very coolly sent me a message this morning, and it said, I thought of you after our chat yesterday, Apples, and the image says, true leadership must be for the benefit of the followers, not to enrich the leader. And I thought that was really special, especially coming from someone of his caliber.
I was just going to say, mate, if there's, we might have a chat about some people who give you motivation, but we might have just uncovered a little bit of recent motivation yourself. But yeah, I think let's I don't want to keep Lukey out of the conversation too, but we obviously have had the opportunity to get to know each other the last more than 12 months with the journey you're on with Live Life Build as well, and ourselves are involved with Live Life Build, the Elevate group. That's all about growth, bettering ourselves personally, our businesses, and creating those cultures. So I know for myself firsthand, we've been able to have some pretty great conversations about the little things that we can all do to to just keep improving ourselves. So yeah, we've sort of been through that for a bit over 12 months, and I think from Darren and myself, we've been pretty amazed at your grind to just keep finding small improvements, and I think that's what it's all about. So I think from no matter what role you're doing daily, each season, each hat that you might wear, so to speak, your coach's hat or whatever it might be, that you're continuously trying to find another level.
Yeah, look, and one of the things that I really resonate with both of you is that you're exactly the same, is that your awareness level is very high, and without a high level of awareness, how do you create change? Unless you're willing to look into the abyss and look into the mirror and hold yourself accountable, then really you're not going to grow. You might for a short period of time, but that's like what you talked about before about the dedication, and the motivation is going to come and go. But when you're dedicated to just being better than you were yesterday, at the end of the day, we're playing the game of life against ourselves, and everyone's constantly out there trying to compete against everyone else. I'm really not. I'm just trying to be the best version of me and be better than I was yesterday. During this process of the last 2 years, and I shared this with Live Life Build, I got a couple of tattoos on my wrist, and most of my other tattoos are all kind of hidden. But these say in Hebrew, on my left hand, it says student, and on my right hand, it says coach. And the reason for that is because as a ball player, I receive the ball, or I take in information, or I take in wisdom and knowledge with this hand, and I feed it out with that hand when I'm throwing the ball. So it's something that I can constantly look at and remind myself that if you want to be a great coach, well, you better be a good student. Never stop learning. And just like the building industry, what you guys have to go through, there's constant education. The industry is changing. There's new products. There's new ways of building. You got to learn different clients and how to relate to them. And I've said this a million times over to you guys. I do not think that I would be very good at doing the job that you guys do. It is remarkable how you have to be, a leader both financially, and you've got to run a team, and then you've got to be a counselor quite often to the couple that you're building for, and you got to work with designers, and you got to work with your tradesmen, and the amount of networking, the amount of communication, and then constantly to stay on top of it all the while with things that are completely out of your control. Those stoic principles fit beautifully for athletes, but also for builders. So good. And again, both of you have grown so much in the last 12 months that I've been able to work closely with you. Watching you just build from strength to strength is because of your awareness and because of your willingness to dig in and be consistent.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot to thank for you, Apples, and I'm not just going to say this because you're on our podcast. But yeah, definitely, I have this chat quite regularly with Caitlin, my wife, and I think she actually might have mentioned to you at the most recent event up on the Gold Coast that we had. I think it was before I'd met you and before you were introducing what you have into Live Life Build. It was kind of, you definitely lose track of where you are, and it's being able to take a step back and recenter yourself, and I guess implement gratitude as well. Look back and sort of see what you've got around you, what you've achieved so far, and then just to really refocus on stay focused on what you need to achieve the next level. I've got a couple of little tricks that I've got from you. There's some of the videos that you shared with the group that I watch quite regularly just to really get a fair old kick up the butt again. I've got a couple of little sticky notes that I've got on front of my computer that I remind myself every day. One, my favorite, that is probably the first one I put up there, is just bold letters that say "Stay hungry." That every time someone mentions apples, the first thing that pops into my head is just "Stay hungry."
Let's cue the disclaimer. It's Anthony here from Build Insite, and I need to let you know that myself and the Build Insite team are in no way, shape or form qualified to give you personal or specific business advice. We strongly encourage you seek out the use of professionals for products or when you are making personal or business decisions. Everything discussed during the Build Insite podcast is our own and the guest opinion and personal experience and is of a general nature only.